Howdy folks, it's Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilia here, taking a look at your tropical update for August 22nd of 2020, brought to you by the folks over there at Pine Belt Gutters and Remodeling. We don't usually do these on the weekend, but we also don't usually have two tropical storms headed toward the Gulf of Mexico. Enhanced infrared shows the two of them out here. We've got Marco right there, and Laura back over here, both looking healthier today than ever before. Laura probably looking better than Marco. Laura, by the way, now slugged to be a Category 1 hurricane as it moves ashore somewhere along the Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, or even as far east as the Texas coastline. Wind at 50, gusting to 65. Pressure now at 1,004 millibars, moving to the west at 18. Marco, a little closer to home, now also slated to be a Category 1 hurricane as it moves ashore along the Louisiana or Mississippi, or even as far east as Texas coastline as well. Marco right now, wind at 65 miles an hour, gusting to 75. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a hurricane out of this tonight at some point, but it is going to be a tough road for Marco with all the shear that's out there. Again, north-northwest at 13 miles an hour. We lay them both on top of each other, and you can see that if you're living in Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, or Alabama, you've either got one, two, or both to deal with as we head through the next couple of days. All right, so where's the shear? What are we talking about in here? Well, you see how all the clouds are kind of doing one of those numbers? We've been talking about this for the last couple of days. That's doing a number at kind of pulling at the northern side of Marco here as it lifts off to the north. You can see that there is a lot of dry air back here as well that's getting kind of flung and roped around. It's because the air is actually coming down off of the range of Mexico, and so we get a little bit of downsloping in the lower levels. It moistens up pretty quickly in here, but a little bit of downsloping as well as just drier air coming off of here and mixing through, and that's why it looks a little more beat up. Marco's case is going to likely be a case of a smaller storm. It's probably not going to be very big. A smaller storm, which means the impacts from Marco are going to be very, very close to the center in terms of the strongest wind, heaviest rain, etc., etc., etc. And as you move away from Marco, the chances that you deal with tropical storm force or even hurricane force conditions are going to diminish quite rapidly, I believe. Even if it gets out into the Gulf of Mexico here over the warm water, it's going to be building on one side. That's going to, of course, be the east side. So folks in Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana probably had the most to worry about with this one. But even still, I tend to think that it'll be reasonably small in terms of where the strongest, most fierce winds are. On the flip side, we've got Laura, which is gaining weight out here, moving through the islands like we all do. And it's sliding on through, and the difference that we're going to deal with Laura, depending on which way it tracks, on the north side of the islands or the south side, as it gets kind of beat up by the islands, the chances are the wind field is going to be reasonably large with this one as it continues to kind of mosey through the Caribbean or the north side of the Caribbean. Because it's not going to be able to get itself fully situated, that's going to keep the wind field kind of wider instead of tighter in and close to the center. So by the time that it does get into the Gulf of Mexico and has an opportunity to do something, the wind field's already going to be pretty wide. All right, Tropical Storm Laura, in terms of your rapid intensification as we head through the next 72 hours, a pretty good bet that we're adding somewhere between 20, 25, and even up to 55 knots of wind speed. You can see out to 72 hours, a 48% chance. My goodness, that's from the ships, by the way. This isn't out of the NHC forecast or anything. It's just ships model data. On the flip side, we've got Marco, which is markedly lower, with only a 20% shot in the next 24 hours that we gain 20 to 25 knots of wind speed. Notice it's 0% in 72 hours because the thought is, and here we are Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it's going to be moving shore, and it's not going to be around to rapidly intensify anymore. The probability that you deal with tropical storm force wind as we head through Thursday, now this is dealing with both Marco and Laura, 16% out here. Hold on, I'll do this right. 16% out in Houston as you make your way back off to the east, 47 in Lake Charles, an 80% chance, 81. In New Orleans, 75, in Biloxi, 63, in Hattiesburg, 68, Mobile, down to 23 for folks in Destin, back down to 15% in Panama City. And that's between both storms. That's not picking one or the other. That's both of them. Notice that it is kind of bullseyed along the mouth of the Mississippi River, Louisiana, and Mississippi. So for folks that are living along the Gulf Coast between like Morgan City and Mobile. Please keep tabs on this forecast as we head through the next couple of days here locally. In terms of your severe weather risk from Marco for South Mississippi, I think mainly it's a slight risk for wind and flooding. Tornado threat's not going to be 0, but it will be a little bit lower with stuff picking up somewhere between about 8 a.m. and noon on Monday, lasting all day long. And again, Marco being that smaller storm, the strongest of everything is going to be closest to the center. Where that center is going to be, we don't really know yet. So we have to forecast based on what we don't know as well as what we do know. But wind and flooding going to be the concern here, with rainfall totals with Marco between 1 to 3 inches of rain. So we could get some localized flash flooding, but not widespread catastrophic flooding. Can't rule out the possibility of tropical tornadoes, and again, those are a little different than regular tornadoes. These are going to be EF0s, EF1s. They're going to be pretty brief, maybe on the ground for 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes, and they're going to be moving pretty quickly too. Generally, tropical tornadoes are doing between 30 and 60 or 70 miles an hour on the ground. That's not the wind speed, that's how fast they are physically traveling. And then wind gusts, between 25 and 50 miles an hour for South Mississippi. We may see some higher gusts, but it's going to depend exactly where that center of that storm decides to go. So across South Mississippi, like I like to do, our tropical weather potential here. Heavy rain at times, that's everywhere. Up to 2 inches of rain, that's everywhere. Maybe even up to 3. With wind gusts up to 40 miles an hour, that's for everybody in South Mississippi. That's the forecast right now. A lot of folks are going to see heavy rain at times, up to 4 inches of rain, with wind gusts to 50 miles an hour. Now, as we move through Marco and Laura, some places are going to see heavy rain, up to 6 inches of rain, and wind gusts up to 65 miles an hour between the two storms. And we can't rule out the possibility, and brief, a tropical tornado. And very few places between the two storms are going to see up to 10 inches of rain by the time it's all said and done. The potential for some flash flooding, wind gusts up to 70 miles an hour, and a brief tropical tornado. And again, those things tend to move pretty quickly. I wanted to post some projected rainfalls real quick just to show you how sharp of a gradient there may be across our area. Folks in Quitman, not even an inch of rain. Meanwhile, in Purvis, 4 inches of rain. This is according to the European model. This is by the time, again, that it's all said and done. I tend to think we'll get a little more rain than this. I think these totals are coming in a little low. I hope that all we have to deal with is 1 to 4 inches of rain, but I've been through too many of these tropical systems where leading up to the event, all the models, 1 to 3 inches of rain, and somebody gets pasted with 7. But the gradient is going to be pretty sharp across our area depending on where both of these storms decide to track. So we'll have to watch that very closely. So there's a look at your tropical update for August 22nd of 2020, brought to you by the folks over there at Pine Belt Gutters and Remodeling.